Welcome back. Today I want to analyze at least one of my daily games on chess.com. On both Lichess and chess.com, I always have a backlog of games that I haven't analyzed, and hopefully that will help me to get better at chess. If you're new to my channel, I'm not a titled player or a chess coach. I'm just a random person trying to get better at chess. One of the ways that I've been told to do that is to analyze my games. Oh, this one says I was ahead for almost all of it, except for two big blunders right there fairly early, looks like. I honestly thought I wasn't ahead until fairly near the end. Well, it says my opponent and I both played in the mid-70s percentile-wise, and I played like a 1250, but my opponent played like a 1050. That's interesting. You would think their percentage would be a little more different than mine. But I had more blunders than they did. They had 5 misses, I had 2 blunders. I had 4 mistakes, so okay, I didn't do well. Surely there'll be something I can learn from in this game. And hopefully you can too. I just look at this for the, just curiosity information-wise when it comes to these things, and then I go to the analysis board to actually look at what I should have played. As usual, I opened with c4, the English opening. My opponent responded with a book move. Doesn't make sense to do anything but take it. Usually the opponent takes back with the queen, and then I get the knight out to c3, so that's what we did. These are all apparently book moves. I didn't realize that. I know I have a lot of opponents that play that way against me, especially in faster time controls, but again, I didn't realize that those were book moves, that this is the Anglo-Scandinavian version of the English opening. I probably did know that at some point, but I don't look at the book with this often enough to know for sure. Here, my opponent usually either goes back or goes over here. The engine says d6 is also fine. This opponent went to a5, which is also a book move. Now, usually in faster games, what I do here is I play the d4 pawn and then put this bishop here on d2, which, directly points at the queen so I can move this knight someplace. But this being a daily game, I figured, something like that wouldn't surprise my opponent. They would have plenty of time to look at it. So I just decided to go about my normal English development, which usually involves g3 and then getting this bishop out. But that apparently wasn't the best. My opponent played knight to c6, which is probably good since they knew I was going to put the bishop here, aiming at that. And I went ahead and fianchettoed the bishop. I can now either put the knight on f3 or play the normal e3 pawn and put the knight behind it. My opponent should play e5 here. I don't know what I would have played if I was in my opponent's shoes here, but I probably would have played e5 or gotten the knight out to f6. And both of those are their top 2 moves because the idea would be, to get this bishop out and castle. But they got the other bishop out, which, signals that they're trying to castle queenside. That turned out to not be great if I play d4 now, which again is something that I play in that Anglo-Scandinavian version when people do it against faster time controls. And it says if I played that, they would play e5 immediately and then I would take it. I don't know if they would or not, but I think the engine's idea might be to go ahead and push this forward to move that knight. But my idea would have been to put the bishop behind it on d2. But again, as I said, I went about with my normal English development, just trying to play it safe. I played e3, intending to put the knight behind it. Again, my opponent should play e5, but they've made it pretty obvious what they're about to do here, and that's what they did. And now, since they haven't played e5, I'm supposed to put the knight up here. I've just gotten really comfortable with the 2 knights on the English protecting each other, and I'm not that comfortable putting the knight on f3, where number 1, it blocks the bishop, and number 2, it's about to get hit by that pawn. So I played here, which brings us really close to even if they play e5, but my opponent was also playing it safe and just went e6. Again, pretty obvious what they're intending to do here. Again, I should play d4, but I've just gotten the pieces out of the way to castle here, so I castled, which wasn't bad, okay? Now my opponent played knight to f6, which is probably what I would have played, and finally I played d4. And suddenly I'm up nearly +1, even if they play their best move. But I think at my level, what matters the most is just piece development and finding tactics, and my opponent is doing probably what I would have done, which is develop a piece. Now their rooks are connected, all their pieces are developed. The light squared bishop is not really, doing much here, but it is off the back rank, and so I don't understand why I'm up +1.5 here. Well, I did what I said I would do after playing d4, which is put my bishop on d2, but I should have played e4 here. My guess is that e4 I'm aiming for a fork. It says if I played e4, they would play e5, and then I would play d5. And then they would have to drop that knight back or go forward with it. Probably not go forward because then I would push the a pawn. I guess the idea here that the engine is telling me is that you need to start taking space. But I wasn't finished with my development yet, so I played this still around +1 if they play their best move, which is king to b8 or queen to h5. But they played queen to f5, which is a mistake. The first mistake of the game. And again, I should play e4. I probably thought about it because I do like to go after queens once their queen is not really trapped, but it's limited itself to the squares that it can head to and get away. I think if I played this, it says they would go to h5, but they might drop back one, and then I would push it. Oh, because I have the pawn fork. Okay, that's why I should have played e4 here, is not to go after the queen, but to go for the pawn fork, because I'm basically guaranteed the pawn fork. If I push this, even if they play their best move, I go here, and if they run away with the bishop, I get the knight for the pawn. Stockfish says I should expect them to just take, and then I would take back, and then they would still have to move that knight. Okay, I definitely understand what I missed here. I just saw they've castled queenside, so I started heading this way. I played a3 with the intention of playing b4, but that was a miss. Now, if they will move their queen in here, they can avoid the e5 problem. Or they can play e5 now, which I guess gives their queen a place to go and keeps me from getting the pawn fork eventually. But I guess my opponent saw me headed toward their queen side, so they played a3, which allows me to play e4, and this time I found it. It just took me a couple of turns. Now, according to the graph over here, we are at about here where this green line is. So I'm ahead for a little while. I haven't yet made the blunders that lose everything. Okay, back over here. Now they need to play queen to h5, but they did what I probably would have played, which is dropped back one. Did I find e5? I did. I used to miss pawn forks all the time, but last year I noticed that. Last year I was trying to diagnose why I had lost a bunch of games, and one of the things that the Insights feature on chess.com, back when I had access to that, one of the things that it showed me was that I was missing a lot of pawn forks, so I've been looking for them and finding a lot more of them here. They are supposed to give up the bishop for the pawn, so they did, and I took back. Now they need to move that knight or take the pawn. Yeah, Stockfish says they want to jump in here to g4, but I think it makes just as much sense to take the pawn, and that's what they did. Now, the only way to press my advantage is knight to d4. Why is that? And how would I find that? That's the thing. Why would I want to play knight to d4? And, like, if I'm in this, I didn't play it, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be asking this question, but in the future, like, what about that move recommends it to me? Where am I trying to go with it? What am I trying to get out of the way of? Or get in the way of? One thing is that their rook is pointed at my queen, but putting an undefended knight there probably doesn't help. It says if I played that, they'd play queen to h5 and I would take their queen, and they would take back. But why would they put their queen there? If I played this, why would they put their queen there? I'm already up a piece for a couple of pawns, so I don't understand why they would offer the queen trade at that point, especially this queen that has moved multiple times. I've lost track of how many times it moved. It took that pawn, it went over here to a5 after I put my knight out. Then it came over here to f5, that's 3 moves, and then after I threatened it with the pawn, it's already moved 4 times. So why would I expect them to trade it off now? I don't understand that. All right, well, if any of you have any idea how I would be able to find my best move here to stay up +3, let me know, but I went ahead with my plan of headed down this way. I've already got a bishop pointed at that pawn, so I put my queen there just to see what they would do. Put my queen on b3, which was counted as inaccurate. They only have really one way out of that, and that is to put the bishop there. That's keeping my bishop from seeing this pawn, and Stockfish would just leave it there and put this bishop on f4, the dark squared bishop. And then they would take my light squared bishop, and I would take back with the king, and then they would hop this knight in here to d3, which threatens that bishop over there. I just took the bishop, which apparently is okay. I figured they only have 2 ways of taking back. One's with the knight, and one's with the pawn. If they take back with the pawn, then I've got, an open file here. If they take back with the knight, I don't know. But now looking at the move list, I did not take the bishop. For some reason, I thought I did. That seems like what I would have played here, but I did not. I played knight to f4, which was a mistake. And in fact, it looks like my next several moves are either mistakes or blunders. So here's the part that I can learn from, and this part I already did. Here in the analysis, I just assumed that I took the bishop because that seems like the kind of thing I would do, but I did not. I played this going after their queen again, which seems a little silly because their queen can just move, and it did, and now I'm not even up +1 anymore. Now I should take their bishop for sure, but I did not. Apparently I thought it was fine for them to take me, and I still kind of think that, but I don't know why I didn't take their bishop. But apparently I was still looking at just attacking down here any way that I could. I played bishop to e3, which points down here at the a7 square, and I figured, would keep the king from moving over here if I could get it over there. But yeah, looking back, I think I should have just taken their bishop. So I played my second best move, which is a mistake, and now we're even if they take my bishop, which they did. Obviously, I take back. Oh, what? Mate in 4. Oh my opponent has a mate in 4 because I took back with the knight instead of the king. We're even if I take with the king, and my second best move is just to ignore the bishop and play f3. If I played f3, they would take my rook, right? In hindsight, that's one of the reasons probably that I put the knight on f4. It wasn't just to go after the queen. It was to keep their bishop from hitting here without being defended. I was basically replacing the bishop with the knight, and the knight would guard f4 and h4 from back there where the bishop used to be. But that's a huge blunder, and it gives up mate in 4. Well, we're on move 18, and this game went over 60 moves, so you know my opponent didn't find this, but they had to play knight to f3 check, which would have left me only one legal move to move to the corner. Then they would have had to find queen to h3, and there's nothing I can do about that other than check them. I would have basically just had to start giving away pieces with checks. Wow, yeah, they have a forced checkmate. Okay, here, forced me to move over. But the queen there's nothing I can do about this, not one thing. And the engine would check here or check here, because once they get out of check, there's nothing I can do, and they win. Okay, so I did not see that from here, but I should have, because of where their pieces are, that once I trap my king in here, they have a forced checkmating sequence. But if I take back with the king, they do not have the forced checkmating sequence because this isn't a check, and they can't move their queen over here. Oh my goodness. Well, thankfully my opponent did not see that. They were just anxious to trade off the bishops, and they did see that I was aiming over here, so they moved their king over to keep me from going there. But now I have to play knight to h4 or knight to e1. E1, because they're still threatening this if I don't move the knight, I think is the answer here. If I move the knight, they can still check me, but now I can go up, and if they can't come over here, because my king will be guarding that spot, and I'd be threatening the knight. Okay, I understand that. So me going ahead with my queenside attack was bad because they now have a mate in 5 if they check here. Wait, now it's a mate in 5? It's a mate in 5 because I can delay it longer now, because now I can check them here and here. Earlier, I could only check them here, or if I didn't do that over here, I only had one check that could force them to wait a turn. Now I have 2 checks that force them to wait, but now they still have this forced mate over here. Well, again, they didn't see it. They saw me headed down there. They brought this in to guess hit the bishop because they were worried about me going this way. My best move here is f4, which, wait, that bishop's defended, knight's defended. I had to play f4 or knight to h4. Okay, how bad was it to just take the knight, which is what I did? Not that bad. Okay, I'm still up +1 now because they missed the whole checkmating thing. But apparently I still have to worry about this. I'm up 4 points of material now. Well, they're going to take back the knight. They're not supposed to. They're supposed to check me. But they took back the knight, so I'm up. Okay, I'm up only 1 point of material, but that's because I gave up 2 pawns for a piece, right? I'm up that whole dark squared bishop. And now again, knight to e1 or f3. If I played f3, I don't know what's to keep them from taking it because their queen's guarding that square. At least if I played f4, they don't have the check because I could just take it with the rook. Or knight to e1, because apparently they're still threatening this over here if I don't play one of those moves. I didn't play one of those moves. I kept going about my queenside attack, but now we're drawn. Wait. How do they not have the mate now? It says now when they check me, I'm going to move over, but they're not going to come in here. What's the difference now? They still didn't see knight to f3 check, and they're going to kick themselves if they look at this. I only have the one legal move. Why wouldn't they come in here now? Aren't they threatening mate still? No, now it says they would go to queen to h5. Sorry, why wouldn't they come over here? What am I missing? They're missing that I would check them this way, and when they took it, I would get the knight. I don't know if I would have found that or not. Maybe I would. I don't know. But that's why that's not a forced mate anymore, is because now I have this check which wins the knight. Because my knight's out of the way. I did have a knight on c3 earlier, but now that knight's gone, I have this tactic. Okay, I think I understand. But to keep it even, they do have to check here, but they did not. They played c6. I'm not sure what that does. I don't know how they chose that move, but I don't understand it at all. It looks like it just opens up more paths to their king. But I need to play knight to h4 or bishop to f4. Bishop to f4 would keep them from, no, it wouldn't keep them from checking me. They would still check me. And it says if I played bishop to f4, they would put their queen on h3 again. No, sorry, it says if I played knight to h4, they would put their queen on h3. If I played bishop to f4, they would move their king over. Oh, because that would be pinning the knight. That's why that was a problem, is because I can pin the knight now. All right, well, I didn't see those. I saw f4. Which apparently is okay. It kind of forces the knight to move, and it keeps them from checking in here. Maybe I finally saw it. That's the thing about daily games. They take so long, and this one, like I said, was 60-something moves, so it's been going on for weeks. So I don't remember what exactly my motivation was, except maybe just to get that knight to leave. They played their best move, which is getting in here, aiming at this bishop, which is currently defended twice. Oh, and I should just go ahead and force it to take the bishop. Interesting. h3 is my best move. Wait a minute. If I play h3, nothing's defending the h-pawn. And then if they take the bishop and I take back, they can't take here? It says they wouldn't, but that would be a free pawn. Not sure about h3 or bishop to b6. Okay, I kind of like that idea. It stops their b pawn from moving and it guards both of those squares. Well, I found a move that I was pretty proud of at the time. The b pawn is pinned, so that's a free pawn on the c pawn that they moved earlier. How bad was this? Okay, not that bad. Still around +3. I thought that was awesome. They can't take it. I thought that's what, Stockfish would have wanted me to do. Well, they need to either move their queen in here or over here, according to the engine, and I think that's because the engine knows that I want to play knight to h4, but I don't know that. Well, I think they just saw that both their pieces are pointed here, so they decided to threaten my queen, which they did. Now, I'm just supposed to block that with my rook. Oh, I did. So I picked up a pawn down there, and now they can trade off if they want to. They did not want to. They brought the other one to see if I wanted to trade. Well, now I need to play bishop to b6 again. Okay, well, I didn't see that. Or just take the rook. But I played h3, which, takes us to drawn. Wait, I'm up +4, and that takes us to drawn? That shouldn't be a mistake. That should be a blunder. The game review was going easy on me here, but yeah, that's a blunder apparently if it takes us to drawn. And it's because now I don't... Wait, yeah, I do. I have multiple pieces guarding that. Well, that's what they've got to do, and it was a great move on them to take it. But I thought if I take back, and if they take, then I would take. Apparently they realized that too, because they took my rook, but they weren't supposed to. They were supposed to take this pawn, which I said earlier would be undefended if I played it. And now it's a problem, but earlier for some reason it wasn't a problem. Yeah, they were supposed to take the pawn, but they took my rook instead. I take back and I'm up +3 still. And I only had a couple of inaccuracies for the rest of the game. I doubt I always played the best move for the rest of the game, but okay, some of that was pretty complicated. At least one of the positions I still don't understand, but I think I understand the rest of it. Just in case you're curious, I'm about out of time, but just show the rest of the game. They did eventually take that pawn. I checked them. I got another pawn, checked them. I came back after checking them. I came back over here because I saw that my G pawn was undefended. So after I picked up that pawn and, did this little checking sequence, I made sure I'm guarding my G pawn. I don't know if that was oh yeah, it was by far my best move. Okay. They came after this. I went over there, which says is inaccurate, but I figured their queen has nowhere else to go. They basically have to trade now. Anything else would have been a huge blunder, and I've got an extra piece. So I was happy with that. Also, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to stop most of, if not all of those pawns. I think my opponent did pretty well through the rest of this because, like I said, during the game, I wasn't sure I was ahead. Now here I thought I might be because of this extra piece, but I also maybe their rook can pick off these pawns. So I went to protect that pawn, which wasn't my best move. I should have protected it this way. All right, so I'm up +3. This takes me back to +2.5. Okay. But again, I don't know which of those pawns I'm going to be able to save in this game. I did that so I wouldn't have to worry about protecting 2 of them, and I could only protect 1 with the rook. They started bringing their king. I started bringing mine, but that was a mistake. Here, I should have played rook to e1. Oh, because of that pawn? Okay. Well, I decided to try to go around this way because I saw all these pawns coming for these 2 pawns, which are currently defended by my knight, but I don't know how long that's going to last. They're bringing their king, brought my king. I don't know why they did that. Now, the reason I brought my knight here was so that they couldn't check me, so I could keep bringing my king or protect this pawn. So that was their best move to pin the knight. So I come closer, like I said, and then they came closer. And now I'm not sure what can I do, because once they come in here, they're going to have 2 attackers on this pawn. And this is, again, during this whole section, I didn't realize I was up +3.6. I thought I might have an advantage because of that extra piece, but am I good enough to pull it off is the question. Bring my rook up. They did what I thought they were going to do. That was my best move. I think if I remember right, my reasoning here was that they're probably going to get that pawn. There's nothing I can do about it. And I still want to have my rook when that happens. Because if I hadn't played that, I don't know, if I had done something else, I don't know what I would have done. But let's say they took this pawn, I took back, they take they're definitely going to get that pawn too. And I don't have a rook anymore. And they have connected passed pawns over there. But I thought if I go here and let them have this pawn, I'm going to be able to drop back and get at least 2 of those. I don't know which 2, but I should be able to get at least 2 of them. So they took that with the king. They should have taken with the rook according to the engine. So this puts me up a little bit more. I am supposed to go to d6. Okay. Oh, that was great. Yeah. So I knew they were going to take that, but now I get to have these pawns. It says it's a little better to go to b6 first. I thought that it was because if I don't take that one, like if I go the other way and take the e6 pawn, then they have time to move their king up there and protect the b1. But if I take it first, now that pawn never has a friend that can defend it on its way down. So it might be easier for me to pick it off at some point. Now they're going to have to keep either their king or their rook there protecting it. So apparently my reasoning was correct on that. They pushed that one, which allows me to take another one. And again, I don't know if I'm going to be able to take that one. I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up having to sacrifice a piece for it, and a piece is the only thing I'm ahead here. Apparently, my opponent should either push this pawn or bring this rook back here. Not sure. Oh, I guess maybe to go after my h-pawn. Well, they pushed that one, which keeps my king from getting out. And of course, my knight is pinned right now, so I can't get my knight out either. But my knight is defended. I came up one thinking, I should be able to get this pawn. I don't think there's anything they can do about it. They got out of the way of their pawn as I thought that they would. Took the f-pawn, so now I have a passed pawn. Finally, I think that's my first passed pawn of this game. So when they pushed that one, I'm pretty sure I have to get behind it. Is that my best move? No, not necessarily. King to e4 or king to e2. Well, I ran back here because I was pretty sure I had to get behind that. Their best move is to push it, but instead they decided to protect its next square by moving the king forward. I threw in a check, hoping that they would get in front of this pawn, which they actually are supposed to do. I just figured if they're in front of that pawn, they can never promote it. I brought my king, which the idea is to, to protect this pawn going forward and also to unpin the knight. They pushed that pawn. I moved my knight. Not only is it attacking the rook, but it's protecting the pawn and it's shielding my king in case I need to move my king forward. And it's going to protect the pawn if I'm able to move it 2 more squares. That was the idea of that. They went over to challenge my rook. I calculated here that if I take the rook, I lose. Let me see if I'm right. If I take that rook, I'm pretty sure they take back and I can't stop promotion. Is that correct? Yes, because they're going to take, and yeah, they're going to promote in a couple of turns. So I basically lost if I did that. Okay, that's what I thought. I have to get behind the pawn. They get out of the way of the pawn, and now they're shielded by the rook, so they're going to be able to promote this, and I'm going to have to sacrifice the rook for it. But the thing that gave me hope here is that I had been able to create my passed pawn by the time that happened. So my f-pawn, I think, with the knight's help, I should be able to get it down, but they still have a rook, which is more powerful than a knight in many ways. So I'm up plus 6.5 here, but I'm not sure about it. I start pushing my pawn, they push their pawn, I push my pawn. And I think here they got worried, so they threw their rook down there. That turned out to be their best move because now I can't push my pawn anymore. I bring my king to help defend the pawn as it goes further, and then they promoted. I have to give up the rook for it. Okay, see, I'm up plus 7 here, but didn't know for sure because obviously they're going to take back. And now I have to, escort my pawn forward. So I went forward. They brought their king. I went forward. They got in front of it. I put my, okay, that was good. My idea here was to keep them from being able to threaten my pawn in any other way, to shield the pawn, and then I could go around the other side of it with my king. Well, they got right in front of it, which allowed me to attack their rook, and they have to run away again. And here, for the first time, I was pretty sure I was ahead. Like, I had become increasingly sure when I realized I was going to be able to throw away the rook for the pawn and still have the knight. But here I was pretty sure that I could promote. When they took, I would take back, and I would be able to get to this pawn before their king got over there. So that's what happened. They took, I took back, and they brought their king, but they can't stop me from promoting over here. Now, there probably is a certain circumstance in which I move here and they come forward and I take the pawn, and no, they're not fast enough. I was going to say, if they're able to get the opposition while I'm in front of my pawn, then I can't get out and we just move back and forth. But I wasn't as worried about that because I have the knight. I thought I would be able to force them out from in front of my pawn or in front of my king to keep my king from getting out. Because again, I have a whole other piece here, which if my king gets somehow trapped on the h-file, I can always bring the knight here as a separate move, which is protected by my king and protecting my pawn. So even though it looks like they wouldn't be able to get there in time, they resigned here. Anyway, I hope you got something out of that. Thank you for spending your time here, and I'll see you next time, probably in 2025, but we'll see.